but just give me the sign, Scott. Welcome to the Human Factor, the LinkedIn Live of Inc. and Fast Company. I'm Eric Schurenberg, the CEO of Inc. and Fast Company. Let us go with a different lead-in. This is a very 2021 issue here on LinkedIn Live. I have an intro for our guest, Hubert Joly, which did not show up in the teleprompter. We'll try that again.
We are vulnerable, and our quest for perfection is over.
Yes, that's right.
My favorite phrase, Eric, is "My name is Hubert. I need help." This is the new world. You know?
My name is Eric Schurenberg, and I need a teleprompter, but now I have it. The CEO's formula for turning around a failing company is pretty well established. Just ask any private equity firm. What you do is you cut costs remorselessly, you focus single-mindedly on profits, and steel yourself against the human cost by reminding yourself it's just business. Well, today's guest, Hubert Joly, proved that there is a far, far better way. When he took over as CEO at Best Buy in 2012, most observers had written the retailer off for dead. They were wrong. Not only did Joly turn Best Buy into a thriving enterprise and boost the stock tenfold, he did so while setting a standard for enlightened leadership that has been an inspiration to many, including me. Among many other accolades, Joly has been recognized as one of the top 10 CEOs in the US in Glassdoor's Employee Choice Awards. In his new book, The Heart of Business, Joly outlines how he did it. And what was most compelling to me as a CEO, he describes his journey from a hard-charging overachiever to a leader who realized that a CEO's job is to unleash what Joly intriguingly calls human magic. Let's dig deeper into that. And welcome, Hubert.
Eric, thank you for having me. I so look forward to our conversation.
Well, this is going to be fun. Now let's start at the beginning of that journey. You described yourself as a type A overachiever, a perfectionist, and truth be told, that served you pretty well. You were a consultant at McKinsey, CEO of Carlton Wagonlit at Vivendi. What changed that made you think that maybe that direction you were headed in was not turning you into the leader you wanted to be?
There was a key milestone, Eric, about 20 years ago. And to quote David Brooks, I had reached the top of my first mountain. I had indeed been a partner at McKinsey and been a member of the executive team at Vivendi Universal. And while it was apparent success, at the top of that first mountain was emptiness. There was nothing. It was void. There was no meaning. And so, I call this my midlife crisis, if you would like. But it certainly led me to want to re-examine my life, what gives me joy in life, and try to discern my calling in life. What is the meaning of my life? How do I want to be remembered? Certainly, I don't want to be remembered because I made partner at McKinsey at the age of 30. Who cares, right? It's not important. And so I actually did, at the time, the spiritual exercises of Ignatius of Loyola, the founder of the Jesuits, of course. And that was, for me, a way. There's many different ways you can get at this, but a very impactful way for me to refocus. And that was my first milestone. The second milestone, and you and I will relate to this, was meeting Marshall Goldsmith in 2009. And before 2009, so Marshall Goldsmith, of course, is the father of all executive leadership coaches in the world. Is the inventor of Feed Forward and whatnot. And before meeting Marshall, if somebody had told me Jack or Mary are working with a coach, I would have said, what's wrong with them? Are they in trouble? Are they going to be fired? And then I realized that I love playing tennis with a coach. I love skiing with an instructor, and that Roger Federer has a coach, right? So, and right. Marshall really introduced me to Feed Forward. He made me realize that always wanted to be the smartest person in the room, and adding too much value was not very productive. And so to the point that when I joined Best Buy, Eric, in 2012, 3 months after joining, I told my team, look, this turnaround is going to be difficult, right? Let's agree. And the reason why I know this is that everybody thinks we're going to die, So that means all of us are going to need to be the best leader we can be. That includes me. In fact, starts with me. And I have a coach. He's going to come in. He's going to ask you for feedback. And things were going well, but give me some feedback. And then I told my team, which was excruciating pain for a perfectionist, thank you for all of the feedback. These are 3 things I want to work on. Number 1, number 2, number 3. I'm going to follow up with each of you to ask you for advice on how I can get better. And in 3 months from now, I'll check in with you to see how I'm doing. And so really beginning on this journey of being a vulnerable leader, as I was saying earlier, my name is Hubert, I need help, and signaling to everybody on the leadership team, it was okay to not be perfect and to try to get better. So these are some milestones on my journey, Eric.
Yes, those are great. When Marshall Goldsmith is the great destroyer of CEO egos, and his mantra is, I am Eric Schurenberg and I need help, or whatever your name is, however great you are, you need help. And Marshall's great at bringing that around to people. Do you remember what those 3 things were that you were supposed to work on after your 360?
Yeah, and I repeated this every year as part of the annual CEO evaluation for the board. So over time, I had to learn on how to become a more effective delegator, how to create, when we had gone past the turnaround, how to create more of a growth environment, and how to learn to unleash human magic, as we were talking about. And these were 2 things I vividly remember.
You point out in your book that there are a number of myths that people bring into leadership positions, and everyone that I know has done that, including me. What was the hardest leadership myth for you to let go of?
It's the idea that the leader is a superhero that's here to save the day. And of course, with my background and training through superior intellect, and then tells everybody what to do, and everybody should be impressed by our brilliance. And here's the scoop: we could do a poll on this LinkedIn Live, Eric, and ask everybody, raise your hand. We're not going to see you, but raise your hand if you like to be told what to do. I'm going to bet you that's 0%. And so that whole thing about the superhero, and sometimes, let's be clear, right? At the beginning of the turnaround journey at Best Buy, when everybody thought we were going to die, there was some decisive actions were needed. And while, of course, I got a lot of input, there were some decisions I needed to make. But it's not, most of the time, the company is not in danger. There's not, and it's not the usual regime. And so this evolution, I think the myth of the superhero here to save the day, often driven by power, fame, glory, or money, that's so 20th century. And I think there's a better way. Nobody wants today to follow this kind of a leader. And so I think the model today is much more about, as we were saying, a vulnerable, authentic, purposeful leader that's here to create the right environment for everyone to blossom.
Let's talk about Best Buy. I was struck by your first day at work after you'd taken the job as CEO. Your first trip wasn't to headquarters so much as it was to one of the stores where you experienced Best Buy as a customer would. Why did you make that choice to connect first with the frontline workers?
My first official week on the job was in fact in a store in St. Cloud, Minnesota. In my book, I think they should say St. Cloud, but for some reason they say St. Cloud. I had actually, to be precise, I had showed up at headquarters to say hello on the day I was announced, which was August 20th or 21st. But on September 4th, which was my first official day, I did drive, I think it's about 50 or 60 miles north to St. Cloud. And that was the advice I will remember of our team at Best Buy. I said, you know nothing about retail. The best way in retail to learn about what's going on is to spend time in the stores on the front line. I think that's not just in retail, in many, many companies, to really understand what's happening. You go to the front line. In general, from a leadership standpoint, when things are going well, credit the frontliners. If things are not going well, blame the top of the house. But in all cases, going to the stores, to the front line, will give you the lay of the land. And Eric, in 1 week, I learned so much. And you'll notice that at Best Buy, everybody's got 2 ears and just one mouth. That's how you recognize a Best Buy leader.
You stayed in touch with your frontline workers. You made it one of your goals. How did you do that from the very top of such a big company?
Oh, it's actually one of the beauties of retail that'd be different. Let's say if I was a defense contractor, that's a bit harder to, stay in touch with the front line maybe. But certainly in retail, so easy. You just visit stores. You also, one of the things I did is that, which was so much fun, Eric, I love electronics. So I had this gigantic excuse to regularly buy products or services and personally experience end-to-end what our customers experience. And that was, and one of my colleagues, Shari Ballard at Best Buy, early on told me about, when you lead this company, don't imagine you'll be able to lead it from your conference room and looking at spreadsheets. It doesn't tell you the truth. So I would make a point to visit a bunch of stores every month, and sometimes completely unannounced, sometimes, with the local team. I learned so much through that approach on an ongoing basis. There's a huge gap between theory and practice. Eric, here is something to write down. In theory and practice are the same. In practice, they're different.
One of the things that someone coming into the company might have thought, just as you said, to your leadership team, everyone says we're going to die. And a conclusion from that might be something is wrong at the very top of this company. How did you evaluate your senior team and make sure you had the right people in those senior roles?
So on day one, I actually told everybody on the senior team, everybody starts with an A. Right? I don't care what happened last month, last year, cannot change it, right? And now, from now on, everybody is going to get to decide whether and how long they keep the A. And that includes me, right? Now, in a turnaround, I do have a bias. I'm a bit of a Maoist. Don't report me to Senator McCarthy. I believe fish rot from the head. And so the generally accepted rule in turnarounds is you never fire somebody too quickly, or the approach to change management in a turnaround is to change management. In my experience is that at the company, everybody knows, when you walk in, everybody knows the 1, 2, or 3 leaders who are not carrying their weight, who are not in it, or not, either from a competence standpoint, an engagement standpoint, a leadership standpoint, they just don't cut it. And so they expect you to actually take these actions. And when you take these actions, people say, and I remember when I did this when I was a CEO of a video games company in California, my assistant said, "Finally, what took you so long?" And then the reaction is, "Okay, so we're now serious. We're moving forward. So it's now time to roll up our sleeves and so forth." So there's anything, and this is not being inhuman. Usually it's not a good fit, or people have lost faith in the company, or whatever it may be. It's okay. People will find another great job, but it's not a good fit. So, but acting decisively at the beginning is very appropriate.
A lot of companies say that they have a people first philosophy. That was true of Best Buy, but the hard part is not espousing that philosophy. It's getting people to believe it, to buy into it, to enforce it as the leader. How did you do that at Best Buy?
So especially as, this was a situation where everybody thought we were going to die, and the key advice I was getting from well-informed advisors and analysts was cut, right? The turnaround formula. You're going to have to close stores, reduce headcount. You see the headlines where company X, is moving forward with a restructuring plan, 10, 20,000 people, positions are being eliminated, and the share price goes up, which is always, very, very tragic. This is a view of organizations where people seem to be the problem. My view is that people are the source. They're the source of the solution. Mm-hmm. And so very concretely, let me walk you through a few steps or a few things we did very concretely at Best Buy in the darkest days. I already said a couple of things, right? Start with listening to the frontliners. People are the source of the solution. make sure you have the right team at the top. Then instead of focusing on headcount reduction, priority number one, okay, this is worth noting down. I have this in my turnaround manual. Priority number one, see how you can grow the revenue line. It's amazing what revenue growth, can do. And everything we did at Best Buy around making sure our prices were competitive, matching Amazon prices, investing in the shopping experience online, making sure we ship as fast as Amazon, investing in the stores, the partnership with the key vendors, including Samsung and Microsoft and eventually Amazon. All of this was focused on accelerating the top line. To the extent that you need to cut costs, all right, here's the scoop. First, focus on what I call non-salary expenses, which is typically the bulk of the cost structure at most companies. I know at Best Buy it was. In fact, out of the $2 billion of cost takeout we did, probably about 70% was non-salary expenses. Let me give you an example. At Best Buy, do we sell a lot of TVs, Eric? Yes, we do. Every year, we would break $200 million worth of TVs every year.
Just in shipping?
So because they're large, they're thin, so they break. So at any point in the journey from the warehouse all the way to the customer, they would get, we would lose some small percentage, but $200 million, you're soon talking real money, right?
Yeah.
And so by working with the vendors on the TV design, packaging, with our warehouse workers, with our customers, if you're able to reduce this by 50%, customers are happy because exactly 0% of customers want to buy a broken TV. And, it's good for the bottom line, and employees are happy. And in my experience at companies, there's so much waste and inefficiency, and it's an ongoing journey. Every year at Best Buy, we would take out about $200 to $300 million of cost, mainly by driving efficiencies throughout the organization. And headcount reduction, sometimes you have to do things change and so forth, but you really do it as a last resort. And even then, you try to see whether you couldn't redeploy people, because by the way, in retail, we have about a 30%, even after everything we did, we still had 30% turnover in our stores. So you can actually redeploy people. And then the last example of people first is all of these things we did, the strategies we employed, okay, so they were not bad, but that's not the essence. It's not difficult to come up with these ideas, you just need to listen, right? But the whole thing is about, from a leadership standpoint, how do you create energy? In physics, we learned that energy is a finite resource. In organizations, it's something you can actually generate. So it's about co-creating the plan, getting going, celebrating the small wins, not going for perfection, but just momentum. And if there's problems, let's look at them. Let's work together on these problems. And so creating that energy is something that releases this human magic that can do great things. So in summary, this human-centered approach can be employed even in the darkest times. And the last example, the last piece of advice I want to give is something I learned from a client. He said, Hubert, when you do your monthly business reviews, don't start with financial results. End with financial results. Start with people and organization, then go to customers and products or business, and end with financial results. If you flip it, you will never have time to get to people or customers. You will spend all of your time on finance. So that's an easy redesign of your monthly business review.
I like that. I may steal that idea.
Please do.
You brought up a phrase that I found intriguing and is really at the heart of your book, The Heart of Business, and that's human magic. You say in the book that there are 4 ingredients, and let's get to those. But first, would you define human magic and how it works in business?
Human magic, I think we probably all have experienced it personally. Hopefully we have. It's when, we have a spring in our steps. We're full of energy when we're working. We're energized. We're excited. We have joy. That is the beginning. But I want to make it come to life in the context of Best Buy. And there's a Um, one day I learned about something that had happened in our stores, and I said, "Oh my God, this is magical," and that explains why we're having these surprisingly, strong growth numbers, comps, as we call them in retail. And that's the story of a young mom and her son, 3 or 4 year old. The son had for holiday, he had a dinosaur toy, a T-Rex, as a gift. Unfortunately, Eric, the dinosaur got sick. Uh, Precisely, the head got dismantled from the body, so that's how you know the dinosaur was sick. Of course, the child was sad and wanted a cure for the dinosaur, so they went back to the store where the dinosaur presumably was born, where they had brought the toy. At any normal store, including Best Buy, a few years ago, you would have been sent to the toy aisle, and with some luck, you would have been able to buy a new dinosaur. But that's not what the child wanted. They wanted a cure. Now, on that day in that store, there was two blue shirt associates who saw what was going on, understood what was going on, took the sick dinosaur, went behind a counter, started performing a surgical procedure on the dinosaur, walking the child through the steps of the surgical procedure. And then, of course, at the last minute, substituted a new dinosaur, but gave the child a cured dinosaur. And now, of course, you can imagine the joy of the child and the mother experienced. And here's a question. Was there, in the tradition of great scientific management invented by Bob McNamara, a standard operating procedure on how to deal with sick dinosaurs, Eric? Or if not, maybe a memo from me, the very smart CEO who had thought about everything on how to deal with sick dinosaurs? Of course not, right? Yeah. These two associates found it in their heart to do what they did. And they also felt they had the freedom to do that. And that's human magic happening in their heart and in connection with the child and the mother. Now imagine if you can replicate this at scale on an ongoing basis in a completely unpredictable fashion. That's human magic, turbocharged. And I think that's one of the key things I've learned at Best Buy is that this is possible. And I've learned about these ingredients to create that environment where it actually happens.
That is a wonderful story. And one of the amazing things about your book is that you break down this totally kind of indescribable act of compassion and wisdom and human connection that those blue-shirted associates showed into a couple of steps that other leaders can follow. You say, for example, that the first ingredient in creating human magic on your team is connecting dreams. Connecting the dreams of your customers and employees to the purpose of the company. How did that work at Best Buy?
Yeah, so of course I'm French, so we need the ingredients, we need the recipe, right? So for human magic. So yes, connecting dreams. Because sometimes, let's step back and slow down. The theme of purpose has become very popular in corporate America, in fact, around the world. And so you see companies busily writing down a purpose, and then with the communications department cascading it down, everybody gets excited and so forth. And then the challenge is that people cannot write themselves into that story. They don't know what it means. And so there's a limit to how much top-down you can actually employ. And so so how do you make that connection? So let me give you a couple of examples, nuggets that took place during the journey at Best Buy. And with humility, because we didn't get to it immediately, it took us time to get there. I saw one day when I was visiting a store, right, which I would do regularly, a store general manager in Boston, he would ask every one of his associates, about 100 of them in his store, what is your dream? At Best Buy or outside of Best Buy, right? Write it down in the break room. Mm-hmm. Okay, and my job, he said, is to help you achieve your dream. Now, how many leaders, and when I say leaders, by the way, all of us are leaders, right? At the minimum, we're leaders of our own lives. How many of us ask people around us, what drives you, what is your dream, how do you want to be remembered. Most of the time, at least in my experience, we spend time more on the job at hand, or what's your pedigree and things like this. And so I thought that was brilliant. The other nuggets. So we were struggling, Eric. We had come up with the purpose for Best Buy as enriching lives through technology by addressing key human needs, which is a brilliant idea. But let's imagine for a second that you and I walk into a Best Buy store and we tell the associates, we have some great news. We have a new company purpose. It's to enrich lives through technology by addressing key human needs, right? People would have said, you're saying what? You want me to do what at 10 a.m. when I take my shift? Yeah. So instead, one day on a Saturday, we closed the stores, all of the stores, for a few hours. And we organized a training for all of the associates. And of course, I was in one of the stores. No PowerPoint presentation, no videos, no speech from the CEO. But a couple of exercises was really at the core of the time we spent together. And we were in small groups, 2 or 3 people, 3 or 4 people. And first exercise is share with each other your life story. Okay, so I was paired with a young woman. She had been in an abusive relationship with an ex-boyfriend. She had been homeless, and Best Buy was really our family, our home. So all of a sudden, I see not an employee, but a human being. Not an employee, but a human being. Second exercise was share with each other. You must have an inspiring friend in your life. Hopefully everybody does, right? I know for me, it's my older brother, Philip. It's just wonderful. And describe what this inspiring friend does for you. Okay. What we're trying to do, and we already do this when we are at our best at Best Buy, what we're trying to do is treat each other and the customers as human beings, not walking wallets. And we're going to try to be inspiring friends for each other and for our customers. Oh, you're asking me to be human. Yes. I can do that. And so I can be my best at being human. Yeah, I hear your corporate purpose, enriching lives. Yeah, I can see, actually, I can actually see the connection, because if I help you, be able to work from home or learn from home and so forth, I'm helping you have a better life in this COVID time. But it starts with a very human desire to do something good to other, which is the golden rule, which is, I think, at the heart of every human being. So I didn't learn this at McKinsey, Eric. That's something I learned on the job.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Hubert, I'm going to steal that idea too, just to warn you.
It's okay.
One of the other ingredients of human magic. We may not be able to get through them all, but one of them is fostering autonomy. And I know that, having been starting out manager myself, and having worked with many of them, that pushing down decision making is very hard. It's one of the hardest parts about leadership. As Marshall Goldsmith says, and as he may have said to you when he began to coach you, that you're adding too much value. The propensity to micromanage and be the superhero you described is really powerful. So how did you foster autonomy across your organization?
So 2 examples I'm going to share with you. The first one, which is connected to the dinosaur story, we had done a lot of work on developing, how in sales you have to ask questions, right, to be an effective salesperson. Mm-hmm. So we had developed for each type of product the kinds of questions, the says and do's, that'd be the best for the sales associates to use in their interaction with customers. They were extremely well done. We had asked our best people to that, and we were encouraging our associates to use them. Here's the scoop: the blue shirts hated them because it was too mechanical, and plus there was no set questions for dinosaurs, so that was the shortcoming. So they still had them, but it was more an optional tool than the direction that you were given. So that was the first. The other one is, it was a moment in our journey where we were talking about decision making, and I told the team, look, and we were using an outside firm to help us with this, and they let me say, so Hubert, what are the decisions you're really responsible for? And you and I know this, Eric. As a CEO, there's only like maximum probably 5, right? The strategy for the company, who's on the team, the culture, big investment decisions, probably a bit, limited like this. I said, these are the decisions I am responsible for. I will ask for help on these decisions, but the other decisions, you guys, we need to be clear about who is in charge of them. By the way, there's some decisions where I would love to be consulted. Like, for example, the branding. I'm not the decision maker on the branding, but I would love to be able to provide input. That doesn't mean I have a veto power, right? And so if I tell the head of branding, you're responsible, that head of branding is going to try to figure out whether who do they want to consult? But the idea that it doesn't need to be unanimous, it's just a consultation process, is a game changer. Because before, the problem we had, if any executive would just raise an eyebrow and say, oh, I'm not sure, I need to think about this, it would freeze everything. Mm-hmm. Right? But you're welcome to raise your eyebrow. Is that the best input you can give to Mary, who's the chief branding officer? I'm sorry, that's not great input, right? Do you have something more specific? If you have nothing to say, then don't say it. Right. And then so we got increasingly clear about who is in charge of what decision, and with the principles, you push it as low in the organization as possible. But to help people relax, if people want to provide input or if they want to be informed, let's be clear about this. And we may or may not consult you, but if you'd like to be consulted, let's be clear about this. But moving away from every one of the executives need to opine was a game changer. It unfroze a ton of human magic. And guess what? The senior executives are not necessarily the most competent at making some of these decisions because we're too far removed.
Yes.
And then we don't know the operational details and so forth. So Mary, is way better positioned, and then we'll help her. We'll provide input, but no veto power.
Good. All right. You're a senior lecturer at Harvard Business School. What do your students ask you all the time about leadership, and what do you tell them?
Well, I think that the reason why I got involved in executive education a while back, it started with my alma mater in France, HEC Paris, where 3 years ago I endowed a chair on purposeful leadership, consistent with the themes in the heart of business. There's a conviction in me that is shared by not just me, right? That historically, I think we've put too much emphasis on techniques, learning techniques. On if you break it down between know, do, and be, a lot of emphasis on the know. Mm-hmm. And you and I know this. Probably everybody on this seminar knows this. The best leaders are not necessarily the best because they're the best at spelling out the 4 P's of marketing or the best at calculating a net present value. There's these other dimensions of how they are, who they are, how they be. Mm-hmm. And increasingly, there's been an awareness of this. And I felt that I could add my experience and my energy and my voice to expanding that dimension on the thoughts about this necessary refoundation of business and capitalism around purpose and humanity, and how we can be more purposeful and more caring and more vulnerable leaders. And the human beings who are students in the MBA program or in participants in the executive education program, I think they all know that the Milton Friedman approach to life and the Bob McNamara scientific top management approach to life, none of this is working, and we need to reinvent business and capitalism. The situation we have today is not great. It's not sustainable. We need to create a better future. And so there's a lot of questions of how you do this, and how do you learn to embrace all stakeholders in support of creating something good in the world, and how do you add value in that context? I think I love of course the next generation. Not that our generation, Eric, is not lovable. I think all generations are delightful, and I'm very hopeful when I see the quality of the human beings we have in the various generations. I think we have, if we really focus on this idea of leading from a place of purpose and with humanity, we can create this future that does not exist yet, but that needs to be different and more sustainable. So I'm very excited about the opportunity. Now, I have to admit, my name is Hubert. I need help. So I'm just a young Padawan at HBS, and I'm learning how to teach. I'm working on designing a course inspired by the principles in the heart of business, but I have much to learn as a young Padawan, frankly.
Hubert, looking back on your life, I'll ask the first of two questions that are reflective in this way. And you had to name one person, living or dead, real or fictional, who was the key number one of all the inspirations in your life, the number one inspiration. Who would that be?
You mean other than you?
Yeah.
It's a difficult one because my life I've been blessed, Eric, being able to be inspired by so many great leaders. And so, I'll mention one 30 years ago, who was a client of mine at McKinsey. His name is Jean-Marie Descarpentries. He was the CEO of a computer company I was serving at the time. And he's the guy who once told me over dinner, as I was doing my best to try to convince him to use my services as a consultant, he instead gave me a lesson. We ended up working for him, but he said, "Hubert, you know that the purpose of a company is not to make money." And that was 30 years ago. It's an outcome, it's an imperative, but it's not the purpose. And when you think about it, if I had, on day one at Best Buy, if I had walked in and say, I have some very exciting purpose for all of us, we're going to double the earnings per share, right? And we're going to increase the share price. There may have been 5 people who would have been inspired by this, but this is not what drives us. If we think, and that was actually, that leads me to another couple of friends who around the same time truly inspired me. They happen to have been monks, or they're still monks. And they invited me to write with them a couple of articles on the theology and philosophy of work, and which led me to reflect on that. Why do we work, right? We spend a lot of our life working. Why do we work? Is work a curse or a punishment because some dude sinned in paradise? Or is work something we do so that we can do something else that's actually fun, like watching the Vikings beat the Green Bay Packers if you're in Minneapolis, or is it? Oh, and by the way, a rabbi once told me that man used to work in paradise, right? Because we were given paradise in the Bible, for those of us who follow this, to take care of that garden. And so work doesn't. And in fact, another piece is that in French, the word work is travail, which comes from Latin tripalium, which is an instrument of torture, right? So work has a mixed reputation, right? On the other hand, we can look at work in a different light, right? Is work part of our search for meaning as human beings? Is it part of our fulfillment as human beings? Is it, as Khalil Gibran, the Lebanese poet, likes to say, is work made love? Is love? No, I'm going to have to slow down. Work is love made visible. Yes. Work is love made visible. And if you think about, so connect the dots, right? If I see a company as a human organization made of individuals working together in support of a goal, well, then if you do embrace that vision of work as part of our search for meaning, work, the purpose of the company is not to make money, it's to serve the common good as part of this golden rule. And of course, you have to make money. And at Best Buy, we treated our shareholders well. Share price went from a low of 11 to now north of $110. So of course, they're an important stakeholder, but that's not the ultimate purpose. And I think there's a very important distinction between an imperative, an outcome, and then a purpose. So that was very inspiring for me. So I cheated a little bit because I gave you 3 people, Eric.
That's quite all right. You're entitled. And you left us with "Work is Love Made Visible," which is a fantastic thing to take away from this. Truly a saying that lives at the heart of business and speaks as well to the human factor. Hubert Joly, thank you for being on this show. And thank you. I encourage everybody to read The Heart of Business by Hubert Joly. And to everyone else who's on the show, thank you for watching. This has been The Human Factor, and I'm Eric Schurenberg.
And Eric, thank you so much for a wonderful conversation. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you.